The Timekeepers' Burden, 1962, Cuban Missile Crisis. I still remember the way the air felt heavy in those days, like the entire world was holding its breath. It was 1962, and I'd been by John F. Kennedy's side for years by then. I'd met him back in 1956, when he was a senator from Massachusetts, and as the note had instructed, I kept close, becoming one of his closest friends and confidants. The Cuban Missile Crisis had been escalating for days, the tension so thick you could almost see it in the air. The Soviets were placing nuclear missiles in Cuba, just 90 miles off the coast of Florida. We had U-2 photographs to prove it. Everyone around JFK was urging him toward immediate and forceful action, air strikes, naval blockades, or even an invasion. But I knew better. I knew how this chapter of history was supposed to end, and I knew one wrong move could erase the future. I had to work fast to protect it. We were in the Oval Office, his advisors all talking at once, each with their own version of what should happen next. I could see it in Jack's eyes. He was being pulled in every direction, and for a moment, I wasn't sure he would make the right call. That's when I spoke up. "Jack," I said, just loud enough for him to hear over the noise. His eyes snapped to mine, and I could see the relief in them. We had an understanding by then. He trusted me, even if he didn't fully understand why. "Can we talk for a second?" He nodded and motioned for me to follow him into a side room. Once we were alone, he leaned against the wall, letting out a tired breath as he rubbed his temples. "Back acting up again?" I asked quietly. He gave me a half-smile, but there was no humor in it. "Yeah, probably 'cause of all this stress." He took a breath and looked into my eyes. "Elijah, I don't know if I can wait anymore," he confessed, his voice tight with frustration. "We're on the edge of war. How long can we keep dancing around this? If we don't act, they'll think we're weak." "Jack," I said, trying to keep my voice steady, "I know it feels like the world is falling apart, but you've always trusted your instincts. Think about this. If you strike now, there's no going back. You've held on this long. Hold on just a little longer. I know what I'm asking isn't easy, but you've got to give them time to blink first." He was silent for a moment, staring at the floor. I could almost see the wheels turning in his mind. The weight of the presidency, the weight of the world, it was all on his shoulders, and I could only guide him. "You think they'll back down?" he finally asked, his voice softer now, almost hopeful. "I know they will," I said. "You just have to trust me on this." Jack looked up, studying my face like he always did when he was weighing my advice. Then, with a deep breath, he nodded. A few days later, as the Soviet ships turned around and tensions began to ease, I watched as Jack stood before his nation, addressing them with the calm resolve that had defined his leadership through the crisis. He had waited. He had trusted. And the future was safe. I was relieved and happy for my friend. But then something rose up in the back of my mind, a shadow of what was to come. The history yet to unfold. We were happy now, basking in the moment of victory, but I knew the hardest days were still ahead of us. Ever since I had first gone back in time, certain moments in history had weighed heavily on my mind. The pivotal events, the ones that were necessary but heartbreaking. JFK's fate was one of the hardest to bear. And I knew it was just around the corner.